Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before we get started, of course, leave your pick of the week in the comments below for a chance to be featured at the end of the episode for the viewer's pick of the week. Now, jumping into this week's comics, I have a very small haul. Last week was one of the bigger weeks for comics, and this week they had to take a little bit of a break. So yeah, I only have 7 books this week, so moving into number 7 for me, a book I honestly got on whim because I only had, I guess, 6 books at the time, so I'm like, let me check out this indie, and that is Metal Society issue 1, and I honestly really enjoyed Kaplan's previous series from Top Cow, and, you know, the juxtaposition of seeing this kind of Wild West storyline with technology taking over, and this kind of had a similar vibe. We got to see humans versus robots literally in a fight, and I'm like, oh, that's an interesting concept. And I felt like this one was a little all over the place for me. It was harder to get into the character. There was a lot of information thrown at you, and as someone who's not into sci-fi as much, they definitely lean more on the sci-fi elements than the human elements in this story. Artwork was pretty good, but there wasn't as much action as I thought. It was very much setting up for the battle than actually seeing the battle. So for me, I just wasn't into this one. So overall, giving that 2 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which is Marauders, issue 2. And, you know, I enjoyed the first issue. I honestly thought it set up things for an interesting story, kind of leaning more into the pirate stuff, and I feel like this one leaned more into the sci-fi. Now, as I just mentioned with my number 7 pick, I'm not a big sci-fi fan, so leaning into those elements, I was not as invested to the story, but the elements I enjoyed was definitely the art. I like the kind of cartoonier style here, and Kitty's voice. I think Kitty is great here. I enjoyed her spunk, but the overall story and a lot of the kind of B or C list storylines here just didn't get me into the narrative as much. So overall, giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, we're up to the top 5, and that is Batman issue 123, and this is the continuation of Shadow War, an event I've been honestly enjoying. I think it's one of the better events we've gotten in a while, because it actually has connective tissue with the previous storylines going on in Batman, Deathstroke, and especially Robin. And with this one, we get to see, okay, so who do we think killed Ra's al Ghul? And, you know, they try to discover that. They don't completely discover in this issue, but we do get some inches closer. But the big reveal is actually at the end where Respawn might have died. Now, I will say that felt really quick because I'm like, whoa, okay, he got hurt and he's dead now? And also just because that character was just introduced, did we need Deathstroke to mourn again his other son? That's, you know, I just thought, hey, we already saw this storyline. Did we have to see him die? Now, he might not be dead. Maybe in the next issue will be about, like, the Lazarus pit, or he's, you know, just a little hurt. But it seemed like he was pretty dead in the end of this issue. But I kind of, you know, I kind of like the cliffhanger because it gave you an interesting movement for the story. It wasn't just point A to point B. The thing that did bring this down, though, was the art. I felt like it was very muddy, even though there was things that I thought could have been really cool visually. Like, I liked Deathstroke's costume, I liked Ravager's costume, I liked Respawn's costume. I was like, oh, that looked cool, their designs, but because the artwork was so muddy, it was hard to appreciate that, and honestly, the visuals in general. And honestly, some of the dialogue in the beginning felt a little off to me, like the Batman and Robin interrogation. I didn't love the dialogue there. So overall, I'm going to give that 3 stars. I'm still enjoying this event and want to see where it goes, but I thought this was one of the weaker issues. Moving on to number 4, this one up a little bit, and that's Flashpoint Beyond, issue 1. I did not love issue 0. I thought it was very explainy, but I kind of forgave it because that's tends to be what an issue 0 is. It's just like, here's some information that you might need to know for issue 1. So it really was a traditional issue 0. And here I think it at least gave you more of a narrative. And I won't say I was invested in the narrative. I'm kind of over Flashpoint and probably the crises in general. I'm giving them a shot, but I feel like they've always just been teasing us with these crises. And I'm like, I just want some real progression. And because this is Flashpoint, it's not really affecting anybody else, at least of yet. You know, I hope it's not a doomsday clock situation where it's so hyped up to be this big big story, and then again nothing really happened with it. So this issue, I think there were some good character moments though, especially between Wonder Woman and Aquaman, and visually it was a really cool book. We got to see a lot of clocks, tying into Doomsday Clock, and if you enjoy this world, I think there's some interesting tidbits, but it didn't kind of blow my mind. It depends on the week for when it comes out. If it's a week where it's like this and there's only 7 books coming out, I'll get issue 2, but if it's a week like last week and I have to drop a few books, I think Flashpoint Beyond is going to be an easy drop for me in that regard. So giving that 3 stars, wasn't a bad issue, but also didn't really say, oh my god, I need issue 2. Now moving on to number 3, which is Radiant Black, issue 14, I believe we're up to. And this issue, we're slowly getting into what year 2 is about. And there's definitely moments and elements I enjoyed about this issue. I think the book shined the most when we get to see Marshall and Nathan interact with each other and really get their feelings out. And just seeing Nathan want to have a normal life and him actually even telling Marshall, hey, I have this voice in my head. And Marshall's like, oh, you want to be, like, special, right? Like, is that the whole reason? He's like, no, really, this is, I'll try ignoring it, I guess. So I enjoyed their interaction. The villain's okay. The crypto stuff, I mean, it's definitely, a now-type topic. But as much time as it took in this issue, I kind of wish we had more of the character beats instead, because I think those are the moments that shine the most. There's some good artwork overall, but, the issue's pretty talking heads with even the villain stuff. There's not a ton of action with there. So overall, I thought it was a okay point A to point B issue with some good moments, but overall maybe a little forgettable. So giving that 3 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Firepower, issue 20. I love that cover. And this issue very much relies on visuals, which I definitely, I will say in a lighter week, it took me it didn't take me very long to read, but I also am not complaining about it because I think the visuals were just so interesting to look at. And Chris Samney just did such a great job where we get to see the juxtaposition. I've used that word a lot in this review, but we get to see the contrast between the more modern society and this more mystical side of the book, and then literally clashing together with this awesome double-page spread of the planes attacking the dragon. And it mostly is an action issue. It mostly is like, okay, let this settle in that this dragon's here. I will say that was kind of my complaint probably of the issues. Like I want a little bit more story, but I enjoyed the visuals so much and I thought it was unique which is why it's a bit higher here because I still had a fun time with the issue. So overall, giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, and that is Earth Prime, Legends of Tomorrow, issue 3, and not knowing this would be the last Legends of Tomorrow story that we would have, but it is, because the show was canceled. And honestly, I was just pleasantly surprised by this book. I think it did a really good job at capturing the voices of the television show, and also telling something that didn't really feel fillerish. I feel like a lot of times with these tie-ins is like, do we need the tie-in? Like, how is this really going to put another layer onto the show? It's just, we've seen that before. And I feel like this did a good job at telling its own adventure and honestly kind of feeling needed as well, where we actually get to see where Ray Palmer is in his life or Jax is in his life, and we get to see a culmination of characters that we haven't really seen interact with each other either in a long time, or at least this group in general all have to interact. And that's something I really enjoyed about this, and what I enjoy about Legends in general is all these different voices coming together and still, being family. And honestly, it was a funny issue. There was just a lot packed in a good way. And also I feel like the visuals were used well here. There's some good action on top of the story, on top of the character building. So overall enjoyed it, and I think my only nitpick was probably the artwork here. I think that could have been a bit stronger, especially because there were so many great jokes and facial expressions. I kind of wish there was a stronger artwork there. But overall, really solid book. If you're looking for an end capped for Legends of Tomorrow, this is a great book to pick up. And hopefully if you pick up more, maybe there'll be a chance for more Legends of Tomorrow content in the future. So that's my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was. And last week's viewers pick of the week was Dark Knights of Steel. And here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I will see you guys in the next one.